Hello and welcome back to My View from the Piano Bench. We do this every Wednesday evening here on my Joe Holt's Notes YouTube channel with the video premiering at 7 p.m. Not technically a live stream now. I was doing it in the past, had some problems with that, but I'm recording it a day or two ahead of time and it plays like a live stream, and hopefully it feels the same and is the same kind of experience for you. We also have my kind of cocktail piano style-ish, be ridiculously spontaneous hour each week. Piano for my friends. That'll be tomorrow night, Thursday nights at 7 p.m. Thank you to all of you who support and encourage me via the link to the support page of my website, which gives you options to do that. And if you're there, check out the Patreon. It's a bit of a unique take on it, and hopefully, non-invasive or non-threatening. But in any case, I'm glad you're here. Each week I pick a topic, and this topic was prompted by a suggestion I had. This was not the suggestion, but it got me thinking about this. Because really, any topic whatsoever can be complicated in my mind and have lots of different threads that came from it. So I'm calling this the song and the moment. And we're going to talk about and demonstrate, really, or just depict what jazz was historically in its more classic era versus what it is now, and see if it makes any sense. So the first thing I wrote down to say is that a song is a unique and individual thing, particularly in the era of what we call the Great American Songbook, which is also kind of concurrent with the era where jazz was popular music. The two of those things are tied together. One would not exist without the other. And in these unique individual songs, they have lyrics, they have melody, and they have meaning. And there are songs that are very meaningful to people. It's a subjective thing. It's not something that can be analyzed. I mean, it can, but the analysis is not the path to the meaning. It's looking at it from the other side of it. And so it's hard to analyze meaning. I mean, especially for me, because I'm not one of those, as you heard me say, put jigsaw puzzles together guys. I'm one to kind of take them apart as long as I know what the big picture already looks like. And these lyrics, melody, and meaning take you somewhere. Right? They transport you, and they're memorable. So this might not be like the world's best example, but maybe, it's almost a cliche example, really, but still memorable lyrics. You are in a particular experience with the song. go, I never know what's going to happen. And I just realized something. I positioned the camera in the wrong place for this. I try to come in closer so that you can hear me speaking, and I'm less concerned about what you see. I'll cut off some more of the piano for that. So apologies for that. I'm going to try to remember to look at the back of my phone and accentuate the positive or something and not mutter or mumble, which I'm very, very good at. All right, so I actually took, on purpose, more liberty in terms of the length of the improvised section of that song than I typically would. A song like that, I'm more inclined not to develop a longer improv chorus, just to keep things connected to the melody. But what I hope was illustrated was that you never really lost touch with the tune or the melody, even as I was playing, melodic things unrelated to the original melody, because there was much related to the melody still going on. And internally for me, and from everything I've experienced, kind of unique among jazz musicians, or if not unique, that's the wrong word, not typical, is that my connection to the song throughout, even during the improvisation, is the melody. And hopefully you remain connected with as time goes by, as time goes by went by. And that was kind of the point of me doing that. So traditionally, jazz players would play songs, popular songs. And people would listen to popular songs and they would be engaged when the musician went other places, but still would always be connected to the song. Right? And then as jazz took a turn, and it really took a turn in the bebop era, and then jazz kind of focused itself on the improvisational possibilities. And as that envelope got pushed, the preferred music for delivering those things also got pushed. And that, of course, did not fare well as far as the size of the audience for jazz as things evolved. But at that point, it wasn't the point. Right? So I'll read what I wrote to see if I was close. As jazz evolved, the song gave way to the improvisation. Yeah, I didn't really emphasize it that way, did I? Meaning that the important thing was less about playing the song, although you were playing the song, and the more important thing was, what were you doing with it? What were you expressing? And for a lot of musicians is, were you throwing out there everything you could do and using the song as a vehicle for it, which is what a lot of people do. And of course, that loses the connection with the song. Now, when I say jazz stopped being about playing those kind of songs, which I, tacitly meant, I think you understood. And jazz players have never stopped. Obviously, I do it. Lots of people do it. And there are jazz musicians, as jazz has evolved, who have continued to see the strength and the importance of playing familiar songs. And, some still do it and practice it, as an important thing in their performances. But as a general rule, jazz has moved away from that. Because as jazz melodically and harmonically became more complex, that created this fork in the road. And that fork in the road is where I stand and I can't see so far down one path. And I go down there a little bit and look around, but it's not my comfort zone. Then I come back and take the other path, the path of continuing to play songs. And it doesn't have to be old songs. It can be more contemporary tunes, which you've heard me too. Now, of course, for me, contemporary could be 70s or 80s, and often is. But of course, compared to 20s, 30s, and 40s, it is more contemporary. And I didn't think of making that demonstration. So right now I'm challenged to think of a tune that I haven't played recently. And by the way, that's why you'll see underneath here, when you watch the Thursday Night Piano for My Friends stream, and some people ask me, what's all this? Those are your notes? How do you come up with them? And what I do is I organize tunes. So as best I can, there'll be a variety of tunes. It won't be all the same thing. It won't be all stuff from 1938 or, for that matter, 1968. But it's spread around, and I try not to repeat songs for at least 6 months. Doesn't always happen, because sometimes I forget or I get spontaneous and something happens. And some songs don't get repeated for a lot longer than that, and that's good. I want that. I don't figure in what I do, though, for this stream against that one. But very few tunes that I'm going to put on this list for Piano for My Friends are going to be tunes that aren't known. Occasionally I'll put kind of a jazz head, in there, but not, but still an old school thing. Like I think 2 weeks ago I played Blue Bossa. And then, of course, the improvising would start. I wouldn't put a tune like Blue Bossa entirely in the category of what I'm talking about. It's kind of like in between accessible and including accessible to me, because I'm not this big, modern jazz vocabulary guy. But it's certainly not a familiar, popular tune. But most of the tunes I play, Cole Porter tunes, Gershwin tunes, 60s and 70s pop and stuff like that. So the fork in the road, though, for me, is seeing the idea of the song as opposed to the improvisational vehicle and taking the path of the song, if that makes sense. And that's the conservative turn, but that's where I land. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with a traditional jazz tune, or trad jazz, or classic jazz, even going further back than as time goes by. And in the jazz vocabulary, especially then, that was a hot jazz tune. It was a jazz tune. It's also a song that people knew, a song that you may know, especially if you're, connected to the older cultures and, like older jazz. So, and this is what jazz was. And you took the tune, then you played, you improvised on it. But like the idea of what that tune was and what the tune was saying never goes away, right? So like the first tune I played, obviously, was As Time Goes By. And there was this sort of spirit of that even when I was being adventuresome. This tune is Please Don't Talk About Me When I'm Gone. So it'll have a different vibe because it's a different Subject matter, it's a different tune. Not necessarily that vibe. I'm not sure why I did that. Should I make it part of the tune? If I do, I don't talk after it. Oh, wait, fine. Oh, yeah, but I also play the melody right. You know what happened? I got confused as to what key I wanted to play it in. And now I don't remember what key I played in. All right, let's play that key then. Was fun. I never know what's going to happen. Or when I think I know what's going to happen, I really don't know what's going to happen. That's why planning and preparation are so problematic for anything. So, you know, you never completely lose touch with the song. But then what happens two things, or actually a bunch of things, but try to have two separate illustrations here. In the complexity that developed because the bebop language of jazz, which is actually the same language as the Great American Songbook language, but it's sort of like taking the lawnmower or motorcycle engine that would be one cylinder and making it 8 cylinders. And it's still an engine, but it's gonna get you places that little go-kart isn't going to take you, and it can get you there a lot faster, and all of that. So that's a real oversimplification of the bebop language of jazz is the same language of the Great American Songbook, but not streamlined. It's developed for the purpose of maximizing the improvisation, sort of. I don't like that, what I said, but I'll leave it there. And so jazz began writing tunes for itself. And I didn't write this down, I just sort of thought of it, but like a tune that would be transitional, that would still be considered, a popular tune, but it was definitely moving in that jazz vocabulary direction, would be a tune like Satin Doll. The theoretical, harmonic, compositional, whatever elements in there are taken from the emphasis of jazz as opposed to the emphasis of please don't talk about me when I'm gone. Or the emphasis that jazz became. Anyway, shut up. Stop there. I'm not going to improvise on the tune or anything. So that progression, that melody is structured a little differently than the pop songs that came before it. But then you take that, and I'm purposefully not talking about any of the theoretical concepts, and that's going to keep this cleaner for anybody. So just go on what you hear. Go on like this, it's distinctive, right? So we're going to take those distinctions, and I'll play a Clifford Brown tune. One of the few bebop era tunes that I really kind of know. Now watch me mess it up. But I like to play it slower than typical. It's called Joy Spring. Joy Spring, Joy. So it's taking the elements of Satin Doll and it's like utilizing them and making it more complex. So I'm going to slow it down. When I play this tune, I don't often, haven't for a while now that I think about it. It's more like what if Count Basie played Joy Spring, just nice and relaxed. But I think you'll get a sense of what I'm talking about. And these jazz heads tunes will have words, but in a lot of cases, and I don't know the case of Joy Spring, probably is the case. The words came after the fact because the song wasn't written about the words. The song was written about being an improvisational vehicle and being a hip melody. Some of the melodies of the bebop era tunes were improvisations to other tunes that became melodies. Donna Lee being one of them, being played over back home in Indiana. But let me just play this tune. And it's a song, but not quite a song like as time goes by. Or please don't talk about me when I'm trying to play a song. Something like that. Whoa. There's the head. I didn't improvise on it, and I said I was going to play it like a Count Basie slow, and I didn't. I didn't play it well either. I'm going to play it one more time and see if I can get in that sort of Count Basie plays Joy Spring, place. And if I do, I'll blow on it a little bit, and if not, I won't. But I think you can get the idea that this is not, a Billboard Top 100 jazz tune of 1950, whatever it is, right? Well, jazz tune, yes, but you know what I'm saying. I'm muttering again, aren't I? Sorry. And we'll just leave it at that. My brain's not working. So, increasing in complexity, or going into new turf with a different agenda. And jazz certainly did this. And a groundbreaking recording in that vein was the Miles Davis Kind of Blue recording in the 50s. Very famous, and I think still the most popular jazz album of all time. And there's one tune. Wait a minute. Now I'm confused. Boy, am I embarrassing myself. You can tell how often I play that. Almost never. But that tune is it a song? I mean, you could put words to this, which actually the bass player leading up to it. So it's just a little riff that just keeps going, and it's actually about this is the melody, but also about that particular harmony. Much more modern, right? And then taking the same thing and moving it up a half step. So when you play on that tune, you're actually not playing on a tune. You're not thinking about lyrics. You're not connected to the ebb and flow of something that's a form that exists that you can relate to as a listener. And you're and that's like when jazz starts to lose some people. Now, no value judgment on this. This is the necessary artistic exploration, but it's a change. And it's moving away from songs, and it's moving toward the opportunities for more creative expression. It's about the improvisation more and more and more. And at this point, although it's not where I wrote it in my notes, I'm going to, actually it is. What do you know? I came across an interview of Dave McKenna later in life for him. And when I heard him say, as I get older, I consider myself more of a song player than a jazz player, I'm like, aha, yes. And I found that interview. I listened to the quote. I wrote it down. And if you follow me on Facebook, that's what you see on my Facebook page. Quote from Dave McKenna. And as jazz evolved, he didn't go down that road because he was about playing songs. And I've learned about myself that's why I hesitate to just throw my hat in the ring as I'm a jazz guy, because I haven't moved with that program. And in the world of jazz, the place where I'm most comfortable is accompanying singers. Because what the singers sing, songs, right? And, for some jazz musicians, accompanying a singer, they won't say it out loud, but it's like a drag a little bit, or it's just like, okay, I'm doing this, but I'm looking forward to when I don't have to do this, so I can just explore, the landscape of improvisation, be in that moment. Yeah, so like, what does it mean to be in the moment? Can you be in the moment tethered to something like a song? Of course you can. Because, whatever moment you're in has this context around it. And if you're going to improvise in a moment, does that mean there are no boundaries and everything just doesn't count and it's just all free all the time? We certainly would call that jazz. I mean, quality aside, but there's different ways to be in the moment, or different structures that make you comfortable. So I hope I'm making sense and possibly running it into the ground. So the thing that jazz musicians now practice is less songs than concepts. And okay, I said I wasn't going to say it, but 2-5-1, just big, that little, that doesn't resolve to the one, but it moves, and so forth. And then what jazz musicians do is they practice not songs, not the context of like developing the form and the emotion of a lyric and blah, blah, blah. No, they practice 2-5-1 in every key, so that when they see it, they just know what to play. And at that point, you're detached from the organic connection to the song, if that makes sense. And let's see here. Yeah, so you practice to the concepts, and then you put them together to play a song. One very popular young jazz saxophonist who's out there, monster player, doing all sorts of teaching. lots of books and classes and stuff. And a lot of people won't want to play like him. All you're doing is you're learning, these little cells, these little things, and you practice on this scale, and you practice over this the progression over this little turn and this, and all I want to do is be in the moment with a song. That's all I've got. In fact, yeah, I was going to write this. Good, I'm good. In fact, for me, what keeps me grounded in a song, even in the heat of improvisation of it, is the melody of the song, not the harmony, not the chords. And all 99% of jazz players, particularly today, are focused on the harmonic progression of the tune, not the melody. But for me, I actually found myself like getting lost and not knowing where to go, because I don't remember, like, okay, what chord. No. And if you see me play in a group setting, when I'm playing by myself, it doesn't happen. But when in a group setting, it's like sometimes I need to kind of know where I am or remember the context of what comes next. I will very quietly find and play the melody again to ground myself, because everything I play is connected to that original melody. If that makes any sense, and it might not, but it might. So I'm hoping it does. So here's an example of the progression. I'm going to play two melodies. Many of you heard me do this before. I tend to play them in two different keys, but I need to play them in the same key. It'll make this make more sense. Two different melodies over the same harmonic progression, right? This is sort of like famously done. Many of you will recognize it. And then I'm going to improvise. And then I'm going to ask you, what tune did I improvise over? And I'm going to give you the answer. I'll know. Because at that point, you're looking at the progression. You're looking at the chords, not the melody. And that's the wrong fork in the road typically for me. But it'll work here. as I'm playing, I've Got Rhythm and Meet the Flintstones. I found myself, I actually kind of lied. Because, well, I was speaking more illustratively and say, well, what tune, what melody am I playing over? I don't know, I'm playing over progression. But I wasn't lying when I said the melody is always what guides me. So I paid attention to what was guiding me once I got past playing the melodies, and it was I Got Rhythm. It's not Meet the Flintstones. And now that I encounter that, yeah, I realize that, and that's why sometimes I have trouble coming back to Meet the Flintstones, because I have to, even though it's the same thing in most guys, but it's the same chords, same thing. What's the problem? The problem is that I get there from the melody, and it's a see the big picture thing for me. So the chord progression for I've Got Rhythm, minus the tag that I was going to not play and forgotten played it. At the end, the term for that is rhythm changes, and there are all kind of tunes. Charlie Parker, Bebop Heads, Meet the Flintstones, all kind of other tunes, written around rhythm changes or close to rhythm changes. One that isn't rhythm changes but is pretty similar, almost identical, is Straighten Up and Fly Right, and Nat King Cole tune. All these tunes, and if you were studying jazz with this musician I had mentioned, he wouldn't be giving you any melodies. He would just be drilling those chords into you and practicing playing over those chords. So hopefully that makes sense. So let me give you an example. Here's a tune, 1930 or 30 something, but I think it's 30. U.B. Blake, Memories of You. Okay, this is funny. I'm going to contradict myself. When people ask me, what's your favorite song? I typically say, whatever I'm playing. Because I'm not, and this is an issue where it's like, this is a great song, this is a great song. Actually, I just want to be in whatever moment it is. But now I'm realizing that I actually do really like Memories of You as a song. Because I like them all, whatever I'm playing. Shut up, Joe. Now, those notes, that movement, and then everything supports it. Now, one thing I could have done, and I didn't think of it, is to look up a lead sheet, music, jazz approach, to Memories of You, and you see all the chords. In fact, if I were to, I don't have that app in here, but I could go in the little app on that phone and pull up Memories of You, and it just shows chords, because that's all musicians think about. But me, I get lost in the tune, or if not lost, I'm not as grounded. So you have to change. So, let me just play from my little melodic perspective here. Your home turn. Whoops! Too much thinking, Joe. There we go. Whoa. Yeah. So for me, it's about the song, and I'm going to pull up a little lead sheet for the last tune I'm going to play. So when in my 20s, mid 20s, I pursued jazz instruction for the first time after I had been playing all my life and gigging, and somewhat had already established myself. Yeah, it would have been in my mid 20s. Other than one lesson when I was in college with a jazz pianist in Philadelphia, who gave me some concepts that I just wrote on my own for like 3 years. But when I studied jazz as the jazz discipline, because I felt I was supposed to, because I felt I wasn't really legitimately a jazz musician until I learned this stuff. The first thing he says to me, which was the first argument we had, because I didn't buy it, and I understand where he's coming from, but I still don't buy it for myself. Which is, he says, are you sure you want to do this? Because the further you go down this road, the more you diminish your audience. Now, of course, I do buy it in the context of what I'm talking about. Because jazz becomes more about exploring jazz for its own sake. And the reason I don't buy it for me is I cannot separate myself from the fact that there are people in the room with me. And is it just that I want to please them? No. It's just that I have an awareness. I can't help it. It's a radar. It's an empath thing or something. But, about how others are feeling. And it's like, why am I doing this for you if you're not engaged with it? Right? And it doesn't, it's a complicated thing. But I'm never not aware of the connections that I'm making. And so I don't play this like for the sake of, making the statement. I play it to be connected. Best way I can say it at the moment. So this is why I qualify myself. I go through some, pains and tortured steps to either not call myself jazz or qualify it. And I finally found a way to rewrite the bio on my website. And it's somewhere in like the header or something, it'll say jazz artist. And that got baked in the cake on my website, and I'm not going to take it out because ultimately if I had to be described as something, it is absolutely that. And I think that the verbiage in my bio, though rightly described as a jazz pianist in the classic traditions, Joe's performances, then it goes on to talk about in the moment, connect with the audience, blah, blah, blah. And then jazz musicians will appreciate Joe, but so will those for whom jazz is not so appealing. And you know, one of the compliments or comments that I've received many times, and it's one of my favorites, is, I don't like jazz, but I like you. Yay. And I can be up the bridge into that jazz. And am I playing jazz? Sure. Because jazz is a broad subject. Right? But I really can't play jazz without playing songs. That's just me. Oh boy, all sorts of thoughts going through my head while I'm playing that. The first one is that I wanted to end with a song that referenced the song, or a song, or the song, or something. And nothing really came to mind, you know. And so I sort of, you know, knew with a song in my heart, but I shouldn't play a tune I really don't play, you know, because I can't get deep inside it, you know. So didn't know the tune well. I should. I'll work on that. Not a difficult tune. And the other thing is, there's a lot of subjectivity to what I've been saying. So emphasize in big letters my view from the piano bench, because I can imagine if there are, you know, some musicians who would watch this who would say, "Wait a minute, hold it, no," and they're not wrong. I'm not sure that I'm wrong either. It's a big tent, and you know, and it's artistic exploration, and that's what we do. So I hope this was helpful or fun or something. You know, please feel free to feedback to me. If you're connected to me on Facebook, you can message me. You can always email me. You go to the contact page on my website. It's right there if you don't know it. And yeah, I'll hope to see you tomorrow night. I hope to see you in person soon. Thank you so much.